Hey there, and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into the world of podcasts.
Mm.
We always love getting your requests, and you've sent us so much research on this topic. Articles, think pieces, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So today we're going to break it all down for you. We're going to explore what podcasts are, where they come from, those special ingredients that make them so captivating. And we'll even touch upon some of the critiques along the way.
Sounds like a plan.
Now, I think what's interesting about podcasts is how they've really carved out their own unique space.
Hmm.
They're kind of like that friend who's always up on the latest trends, but also has a deep appreciation for the classics.
I like that.
So we'll be exploring how podcasts connect to traditional radio while blazing their own trail.
Exact.
And you might be surprised at the differences, not just in the tech stuff, but also in the culture and even the way they sound.
Yeah, what's fascinating about podcasts is that they exist in this liminal space. It's this unique blend of connection to radio, but they are forging their own path. And we'll unpack those technical, cultural, and even sonic differences that make podcasts so unique.
I love that analogy. It really captures that blend of innovation and familiarity.
Hmm.
So let's start with the basics. What exactly is a podcast? Is it just a fancy way of saying audio file?
Well, you could technically define podcasts as audio files delivered through RSS feeds, but that's a bit like describing a painting as just a collection of brushstrokes. It misses the heart of what makes a podcast a podcast.
Okay, so there's more to it than just the technical side. What else is there?
Think of it this way. Podcasts are more like a cultural movement than a specific technology. They represent a shift in how we consume and connect with audio content. Actually, one researcher even described podcasts as intimate audio dialogues,
Right.
highlighting that sense of closeness and personal connection they create.
This is about the experience, the connection, the feeling you get when you're listening.
Precisely. And that connection is often fostered by the people involved. Think about those huge podcasting conferences like Podcast Movement. They're buzzing with energy, a real sense of community. It's clear that podcasting is as much about the people creating and listening as it is about the technology itself.
That makes total sense. It's like a whole ecosystem with creators, listeners, and technology all playing their part. But where did this whole thing even begin? When did podcasts first appear on the scene?
Well, to understand the roots of podcasting, we need to rewind a bit and look at the confluence of a few key elements. Technological advancements like on-demand music and affordable recording equipment definitely played a role, giving people the tools to create and share audio content more easily.
It seems like podcasting emerged at that perfect moment, when technology caught up with people's desire to create and share their voices.
Exactly. And this was happening alongside a cultural shift. Towards more independent DIY media creation, people were eager to tell their stories, share their expertise, and connect with others outside of traditional media channels. Early podcasting really embraced that DIY amateur spirit.
So those early podcast pioneers were kind of like the garage bands of the audio world, experimenting and creating without the constraints of big studios and corporate gatekeepers.
That's a great way to put it. And that lack of gatekeeping allowed for some seriously unique formats to flourish. I mean, think about shows like My Dad Wrote a Porno. That's a comedy podcast based on, well, amateur erotica. It's hilarious, but it's definitely not something you'd hear on traditional radio.
That's a perfect example. It shows how podcasts can push boundaries and explore niche topics in a way that other media formats might shy away from. So we've touched upon the definition and the historical context, but what really sets podcasts apart from other types of audio? What makes them unique?
Well, there are several key characteristics that define the podcasting experience. One is authenticity. Podcasts often feel more raw and genuine compared to, say, a polished radio broadcast.
I can see that. It's like the difference between reading a carefully edited article and having a conversation with a friend. Podcasts have that conversational, unfiltered quality that makes you feel like you're part of the discussion.
You hit the nail on the head. It's that feeling of being let in on something real and unscripted. Think about Mark Maron's WTF podcast. He records these incredibly intimate conversations with guests right in his garage. That setting, combined with Maron's conversational style, creates a sense of authenticity and vulnerability that you just don't find in more formal media settings.
It's like you're eavesdropping on a private conversation, getting a glimpse into someone's world.
Exactly. And because you're often listening through headphones, often alone, it creates a sense of intimacy and connection that's quite powerful.
And with headphones, it really is fascinating to think about how that lack of visuals actually heightens the listening experience.
It does.
You're forced to focus on the nuances of the voices, the tone, even the silences.
That's a great observation. It's almost like podcasts activate a different part of your brain. Without any visuals to distract you, you're drawn deeper into the world created by the sound.
And with that deeper engagement comes a sense of purpose, right?
Mhm.
Podcasts often feel driven by a clear passion or goal, whether it's to educate, entertain, or spark a conversation.
You're absolutely right. One researcher even argued that podcasts are inherently purposeful. They provide a platform for deep dives into subjects that might not get much attention elsewhere.
Yeah, that makes me think about the incredible diversity of content out there. There's truly a podcast for everyone, from the niche to the mainstream.
Exactly. You can find podcasts on literally anything you can imagine, whether it's the history of board games, astrophysics, or true crime. This distinctiveness is one of the most remarkable aspects of podcasting, and it speaks to its ability to foster a sense of belonging and shared passion among listeners.
It's incredible how a medium that essentially just uses sound can be so creatively rich. And that brings us to an interesting point of comparison. Podcasts versus radio. How do these two audio formats relate to each other?
We can visualize the relationship as a Venn diagram. There's some overlap for sure, but also distinct identities. Podcasts borrow certain production practices from radio, but they also break free from the mold in some key ways.
I like that visual, the Venn diagram. So where do they overlap and where do they diverge?
Well, radio is bound to a linear schedule. You tune in at a specific time to catch a specific program. Podcasts, on the other hand, offer you the freedom of asynchronous consumption. You can listen whenever and wherever you want.
And that's a game changer, especially in our busy lives. I can't tell you how many times I've been grateful for that flexibility during a commute or while doing chores.
It's like having a personalized radio station. That caters to your schedule and interests. And that ties into another key difference: content freedom. Podcasts are less constrained by the institutional limitations that often shape traditional radio. They can delve into more unconventional topics, experiment with different formats, and really push the boundaries of audio storytelling.
That freedom allows for some truly unique and niche content to flourish. Like that podcast I mentioned earlier about the history of board games. I guarantee you that's not something you'd stumble upon while channel surfing on the radio.
Precisely. Podcasts cater to a diverse range of interests and communities. And it's not just about the content itself, it's also about the listening experience.
How so?
Well, as we touched on earlier, podcasts often cultivate a more intimate and focused listening experience because you're actively choosing what to listen to. You're already more engaged, and listening through headphones, you're enveloped by the sound, almost like you're having a one-on-one conversation with the host.
It's interesting how that lack of visuals actually intensifies the experience. You have to really listen to the words, the tone of voice, the sound design. It's a much more active way of listening.
Exactly. And that makes it all the more rewarding. You're not just passively absorbing information, you're actively engaging with it, forming your own interpretations and connections.
It's a powerful way to connect with ideas and stories. So podcasts seem to have a lot going for them, but no medium is without its criticisms, right?
What are some of the challenges or concerns surrounding podcasting?
That's an important point. Despite its strengths, podcasting does face a number of critiques. One major issue is the evolving landscape of platforms and monetization. We're seeing an increasing number of exclusive deals with platforms like Spotify, which can raise concerns about accessibility and potentially limit the open source ethos that has been so central to podcasting. Right, think about the controversy surrounding Joe Rogan's exclusive deal with Spotify. It sparked a lot of debate about the balance of power between platforms, creators, and listeners, and whether these deals are ultimately beneficial or detrimental to the podcasting ecosystem.
Exactly. While exclusive deals can provide creators with financial stability and broader reach, they also raise questions about whether they create a sort of walled garden effect, fragmenting the podcasting landscape and making it harder for independent creators to reach wider audiences.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers. It highlights the tensions between the desire for creative freedom and the realities of a rapidly evolving media landscape.
Indeed. And that brings us to the heart of what makes podcasts so captivating. They are constantly evolving and adapting, new formats are emerging, technology is changing, and the lines between podcasts and other forms of media continue to blur.
It's exciting to be part of a medium that's still finding its footing, still pushing creative boundaries. So what does this all mean for us as listeners? Why should we care about the world of podcasts? It really is fascinating to see how this world is unfolding. And I have to admit, All this talk about podcasts is making me want to check out some new shows.
Me too.
What advice would you give to someone who's just starting to explore podcasts?
Well, first off, I'd say, don't be afraid to dive into the deep end. There are podcasts out there for every interest imaginable, whether you're passionate about ancient history or the latest tech gadgets. There's a podcast out there waiting to be discovered.
It's like having access to a universe of knowledge, stories and perspectives, all your fingertips.
Exactly. You can learn from leading experts, hear incredible stories from people around the world, and even challenge your own perspectives.
And all of this is packaged in a format that fits seamlessly into our busy lives.
Yeah,
We can listen while we commute, exercise, or even do the dishes.
that's the beauty of it. Podcasts offer this incredible flexibility and accessibility, making it easier than ever to learn, grow, and be entertained.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of podcasts, what's the one key takeaway you hope listeners will walk away with?
I think the most important thing to remember is that podcasts offer us a powerful way to connect, learn, and be inspired. They give us a platform to explore the world, engage with different perspectives, and even find our own voices.
Beautifully said. And as podcasting continues to evolve, who knows what amazing new formats and stories will emerge. It's an exciting time to be a listener, and I, for one, can't wait to see where this journey takes us.
Me too. And remember, the best way to support this incredible medium is to keep listening, keep exploring, and keep sharing your favorite podcasts with others.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.